So how are you, George?
Very well, thank you for asking. Keep saying I need to stop saying that. It's my first day, second day actually, quitting cannabis, I should say. It's going well. Keep saying
For clarity, you weren't actually smoking in last week's episode, just to make it
Oh
clear.
yeah. Because obviously I saw the first comment I saw on there. Here we go, George is toasted.
It was
Actually,
Jack.
I was actually had my first nap in about 6 years. I don't nap at all because, like, for me, I spoke about this after the podcast. I just can't justify napping throughout the day because I don't feel productive. I feel like I'm just wasting my time. And I'm getting to that age now where I'm 23, 24 next month. I'm getting to that age where I feel like, am I doing enough for my age? Have you had that sort of talk to yourself?
Yep.
Am I doing enough for my age? Am I in the position that I need to be? And I can't start comparing myself to everyone else who's 23 in their lives and what they're doing. But I just need to remember where I started to where I am now and not compare. But I went through that, it was the missus' birthday the other day, and we're getting older. I'm like, I don't want to get older. I'm thinking I don't want to get older. I want to stay where I'm at. And then I was debating all this. So yeah, I'm in that sort of life situation at the moment. I'm thinking about, am I doing enough in my life?
Okay.
I hope. Well, I think the last, like, this lockdown, I must admit, I haven't been stepping up the game as much as what I have been in the past. But I'm determined to, get back into it with the YouTube, that side of things. It's just been me being lazy, if I'm honest with you. I did fall out of love with it a little bit because it was quite repetitive. I weren't really getting the rewards from doing YouTube in terms of like the effort, the thumbnails, the editing, all for it to get like demonetized on YouTube. And I was thinking, I could invest that into getting more clients and earning money that way. So it's difficult. It's really difficult. And the lockdowns, I must admit, they haven't helped with my YouTube channel. And I've actually, not lost motivation because I still, I get things done every single day, but just that drive, I sort of lost that drive. And I need to get that back because even just looking on my engagement on social media, it's the lowest it's been in a couple of years.
Oh yeah, yeah. Same here. Like, my followers have not moved at all.
And I want to get back into it. I want to start building a brand. I want to start, doing what I do best, and that's showcasing what I do, being honest, giving people value, and I just want to get back into that because I do really miss it. I must admit.
Yeah.
It's just hard at the moment with obviously lockdowns and gyms and can't post this, can't post that. It's just very all up in the air. But everything else other than that, outside of that, is good. Training's been probably the best it's been in a long time. Just through me just nailing things better, like sleep, hydration, things like that. I must admit, in my off seasons in the past and this off season, I've just been lazy with them. Like, prep for me is a completely different ball game. Like, I'm flicking the switch, like robotic, like I'm nailing everything every single day. But my off seasons, I just find myself, after a while anyway, just kind of losing that consistency that you sort of get when you finish a show and you're like, right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to have this in place. I'm going to go for walks after every single meal. That does not last. That only lasts a couple of weeks.
Last,
Fuck all that shit.
yeah.
I just want to treat like my off seasons more that like my preps, if I'm honest, and I feel like I'll, reap the rewards of doing that. So the rest of this year is just day in, day out, nailing absolutely everything and see what 2022 brings. But yeah, training's been good. Today I incline press the 50s for a set 10, which I've never done in my life.
That's sick.
A higher incline. For 170 something pounds, I think pound for pound, it's not too bad. That.
Yeah, solid.
I did introduce the narrow grip because obviously we're having that little bit of competition with narrow grip. Mate, I did 42s for a set of 6 today, and
not bad.
It's not too bad, but it was just such a new movement for me that these last few reps, it was like I was pressing and then the dumbbells were coming out,
stuck, yeah,
they were coming back in like that. They were just, yeah, it was just, I looked at that, I was thinking, yeah, they need a little bit of work, but just learning that movement again, I'll get back into that.
Yeah.
Leg training's going well. I actually found out last week, I mentioned last week, didn't I, about my adductor, so I don't need to go through that again.
Yeah.
Introducing just a little bit of work on that. Nothing too crazy because I do still feel it and it's quite uncomfortable, but I'm not waking up the next day and it's like, wow, I can't walk anymore.
Okay.
But remember when you saw me in Tesco's that time?
Yeah.
So basically I went to the frozen section. I drove up all the way to Ultraflex, about 2-hour drive it was at the time. I trained with Kuba and Meg, and I was on the adductor machine, the gym shop one, Really, really nice. And obviously I was just pushing myself. It's the first ever time I used it, or maybe second. And Kuba just told me, just go for it. And I went for it. And I just felt something ping. And I was like, okay, cool. So I still went on for the rest of the session. And then I was walking around Tesco's and I was just hobbling. And I was like, this is not good. And then found out when I got massaged last week, I potentially tore it about 12 weeks ago. And I've just been training through it, like a madman, and just found out I've tore my fucking adductor, which is great. So that's on the mend. That's on the way back. It's not painful at all anymore, to be fair. It's only painful sometimes if if my leg sometimes slips and it's like, oh, like that's a bit tight. But other than that, outside of that, mate, business is starting to pick up. Again, gym's opening soon, so more inquiries, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Outside of that, Mrs. birthday on Sunday, it was nice. Had a bit of cake. I don't even like cake. I just had a slice, and I was like, I've always been that person when I was younger. I'd eat the icing and just leave the fucking rest of it.
Yeah, that's the best bit. 100%. Agreed.
I'm just too chocolatey. Just sits. It just doesn't feel comfortable for me. So I just eat the icing and just throw the rest away.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, how's your week been?
Yeah, all good, mate. To be honest, can't complain. I think just touching on your bit there about sort of treating off season more like a prep, or at least having more of the routine that you had in your prep transition into off season. I think that's what I've been sort of very much focused on this particular off season. I mean, even when I was in Dubai, like it was just as much as the routine in the day was a little bit different. It was very much the same structure to meal patterns, the same structure to getting in expenditure. Literally ever since the stepped off stage, I've treated it like a prep, but with more food. But I know exactly why, the reason why we all stopped doing these things. Like we all stopped going for the walks and we all stopped sticking to the structure, is because it's fucking hard. It really is hard to stick to it. Like at the moment, for me, the most difficult thing is getting up early enough and out of bed to box off the whole routine as I would normally. Because in prep, I'm sure you agree, you wake up, you almost like jump out of bed because you're ready to go. Like your body's hungry. I feel like your body in prep is like, it's hungry for work. It's hungry for more. It's hungry for like making your routine the best it could possibly be. But when you're in an off season, like right now, this morning I was fucking heavy. I was 195.8 out of nowhere. I had a weigh in like you. Like I went up like 2.5, 3 pounds overnight. I was like, Christ, like just felt watery as hell. But yeah, I'm pretty much like the heaviest I've been. I will probably surpass that 196, which is like the heaviest I've ever had on that scale. Which is the scale that I used the whole prep and the end of last off season. So I know it's the same. Yeah. So I will probably surpass that at some point. And my body just feels like just a lot slower. It just feels slow during the day. It feels slow getting up. And I was actually a guest on a podcast earlier, and the guy asked me, the usual question about whether you'd go assisted and things like that. And I just can't fathom how, like, for example, James Hollingshead feels. So I can't fathom how it'd feel to have another 100 pounds on this, because James is like, I think a similar height to me, if he's maybe a little bit taller.
James is about 5'11".
Yeah, he's taller than me then. He's a little bit taller, but still, like, he carries like 300 fucking pounds. Like, I can't fathom how that feels. It must feel so bad. It must feel so bad. But the thing is, you get used to it. So I think if you keep going up steadily, you'll eventually adapt for sure. And then the routine will start to be held a little easier. But right now, ever since I've got into the 190s, I've had to be really strict with myself, like proper strict, to get awake at the right time to start the routine off well. Because if I don't get up at the right time, I'm behind. I'm just behind off the get-go. I'm behind on the work that I need to get done. And then most importantly, I'm behind on meals, and then I'm behind on fluid. And then, what that does, it just starts to then, you have one day like that, and then it's 2, and then it's 3, and then it's just, you've lost it. It's as easy as that, isn't it? It's just a difficult one. And I definitely lost it last off season, I must admit, but I have not lost it this off season. But it's been it's been hard. And I must admit it. I think I found it more difficult than prep, in all honesty, to maintain that structure. Definitely more difficult. And at times I sit here and I'm working and I feel really like mashed and tired from the overloading sessions and the food, because the food's really high at the moment. And I think I'd really much rather feel really hungry right now than like want to go to bed. Like, I want to go to sleep, basically. Like sometimes like just you know, don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that like this is the upper end of the extremity at which we push in a phase that we're trying to add muscle. And it's just the same as when you diet down. It should be just as hard. It should be a challenge. If it's not a challenge, then I don't think you're actually forcing growth. I don't think you're going to come down looking much different if you don't experience that sort of like hard phase of a push-up.
100%. I think I'm there at the moment. The biggest change I've had to make this week is take every single stimulant-based pre-out, because it's literally like, I mean, I've been taking some strong pre-workouts, I must admit, stronger than what I usually would. And yes, we know, caffeine is an appetite suppressant, but the other ingredients in the pre-workouts have just been fucking ruining my appetite for like the rest of the, like, I will take, like, for example, a pre-workout the day before, my appetite will be fucked from that day to the next day, and I'll be right afterwards. It's just too much for me. And little things like, reducing my intra-workout shake to, I literally drink 500 milliliters now. I can't stomach really anymore, because my appetite, like, especially drinking EAAs and highly balanced cyclodextrin when you're training, it's just like, getting to that point. I can't wait to summer until it's a little bit warmer, and I can put the intra workouts in the freezer.
But then the food gets so much harder because the heat zaps you. The heat zaps you even more. Mm-hmm. Like, it really does. I feel for people that have to consistently push up in hot climates. Because even in Dubai, I was post-show and my appetite started to dwindle a little bit because of the heat. Like, I could quite easily go and just lie down on the beach, which I did occasionally, and not eat a meal, because I was when you're hot and clammy, like, you just don't want to eat. So I really look up to people that are able to do that. But I guess to sort of maybe act as a bit of a take home for some people, like, one of the biggest things that I've found that's helped me has been, so with the food side of things, really, really sticking to a set structure with food sources that I know sit well. So my entire off season has been literally rice-based carbohydrates the whole way through. And I've not changed and I've not deviated from that, apart from the occasional off plan. But I've really not deviated from that. And it's allowed me to sync the food pretty easily. Albeit it's getting a little bit boring, but I almost think that this reminds me of like when you used to watch those old like Jay videos where Jay would just eat like endless amounts of rice, and he'd always say, he'd put away, like, in his off seasons, 900,000 grams of carbohydrates, and they'd all be from like, the typical clean bodybuilding foods, and he'd say how much of a challenge it was. But I ultimately think that that's the reason he can get that high and still have a decent digestive function and still be able to keep going and keep gaining the weight. So that's one of the biggest things that's helped me from a food perspective and appetite perspective, and not crash too quick. So I think the people that crash are the people that add in crap basically straight away, and then end up just like accumulating more and more rubbish throughout the rest of the off season, and then they lose more and more of the structure, and then before they know it, their food's not even that high and it's full of rubbish anyway. You know what I mean? They just lose everything about the structure. And then the second thing is almost definitely sleep, and just being like almost to the point where I'm really strict, like I've said, with myself with a bedtime, which is set in stone now, that I actually feel really sleepy by 8:39. So I am in bed by 9 every night. And that's a stark contrast to the last off season. Like, by the end of the off season, it was pretty much most nights at midnight I was going to bed. And even like 10 weeks out of my shows, I was still going to bed at like 11:30, midnight. So that routine and structures helped me a lot, because otherwise I'd be waking up at, 8:30, 9 again, like I did at the end of the last season, and just lose half the day. And then thirdly, just managing fatigue better than ever. And this is something me and Cuba have talked about a lot. I think we ignored a lot of warning signs. And also when me and Cuba were training together, we have that same sort of mentality of, we must bury ourselves within this session, and like more is good. And that's like, when we train together, we'd obviously always take forced reps. We'd always, like, on everything, we'd pretty much take at least one forced. And I think there's a time and a place for that, for sure. But I think him training with Meg, me equally training with Loz, we've avoided that a lot more. Like there's barely any forced reps. I'm barely doing forced reps. I don't know exactly about Cuba. I'm sure he's doing a few, but I don't think he's doing hardly as many as we were. And that management of fatigue then cross transfers into your appetite being better, etc., etc. So yeah, I think that was a decent discussion.
Yeah. Just to end that, at the moment, what I'm doing that's found that's helped my appetite is, like, I brought my fats down. Like, some meals I would have
another one, yeah,
maybe 15 up to 20 grams of fat in a meal, especially on my rest days. I'd go that high. But now I won't go over 10 grams in each meal. I won't. I really won't, because and it has helped with my appetite. It really has. So that's one thing which some people can incorporate. And lastly, I've just been adding in more fruit. Like, this is the most fruit I've had ever in my diet. I'm not a big fan of fruit, I must admit. Like, I'm very picky and selective about what fruit I use, but just been getting a little bit more fruit in has just mixed it up for me. Like, frozen blueberries. I've actually been drinking quite a lot of orange juice, apple juice, different things like that have helped. And, I'm still getting in my 5 a day. So that's helped. My carbs, they're 625, maybe I go a little bit over than that on some days, but it's just doing that for a long period of time, which has kind of done me over almost. And yeah, I can fight it. It's easy for me. I sit here and complain about the appetite side of things, but I'm more than capable of getting in the food each day. It's no problem. It's just one of those sometimes where I wish I could look forward to food. Like, food doesn't excite me right now. If someone tells me, George, you want a bit of this, I'm like, yeah,
it'll come, mate. It will come back, and we'll probably do some form of resensitization phase for your appetite at some point. But I think right now we're both agreed that you need to just get some body weight on and battle the appetite for a little bit, to an extent. Okay. But anyway, moving on, we've got a guest. It's in the waiting room, BTS waiting room as always. Exciting guest today, and excited to get into this conversation.
100%. Right.
Set up.
Working? All good? Hello?
Hold up, Ducky. You all right?
You're in. How you good? How are you, man? You good?
I'm good. How are you both?
Very good. Thank you very much, mate.
Save the best till last. I like your thinking, gents. Well done.
Yeah. we honestly did, mate, for sure. I think we had to have the trio. It's an absolute must. Mm-hmm. So how are things going your end, mate? We always like to sort of start the discussion with where are things at right now. Obviously, it's very exciting times for three of you as a unit, but specifically yourself heading back into another contest prep. So what are things looking like? How are things going at the moment?
Yeah, big thanks for having me on, chaps. Very, very well at the moment. It's the first proper show I've been under some form of guidance. Having Cal take me through that recent off season with the boys by my side and creeping up to sort of 110 key with relatively acceptable condition for myself anyway was crazy. So kind of transferring that mentality into this contest prep is has got the mouth water. And obviously it's not ideal because we're all kind of separate at the moment. Josh is up at the grow room, Joe's kind of here and back at home, and I'm kind of between two facilities, but it's only 3 more weeks left, and it'll be a nice injection motivational wise when we do go back in April. I think I'll be about 8 weeks out, same as Josh, and then Joe will have about 3 or 4 weeks with Joe before he flies away. So yeah, in a good space, mate. Food's just come down this week. Cal checked in on Sunday, but yeah, I mean, the mind is completely different this time round, and I'm in a very good headspace.
Fantastic. Yeah, so it's been a really, really good sort of phase to what you go through. I think one of the things we were actually talking about off air is both myself and George, looking back at our off seasons, we've noticed sort of issues with dints in our armor, so to speak, that are problems that have arisen as a result of staying in a phase for quite a long period of time. Like I did a 2-year off season. George is doing a 2-year one at the moment. One of the biggest things that I've noticed with yourself is you definitely have taken things a lot more seriously in the last off season. And what was the main catalyst for that? And maybe some of the things that you have done differently in that off season, if you could have some of them. Yeah,
fantastic question. A big driving force from that was this time around. I don't want to just be Tom the YouTuber. I want to be Tom the bodybuilder. So having that kind of at the back of your mind, every single session, every meal, it was a huge force to sit on. And I think because the off season was condensed to sort of 6 or 7 months, I didn't tell Cal I wanted to compete until sort of last minute, and he went, I knew it was coming, and the plan was to stay on and push on this year and get a little bit more tissue in areas that needed to kind of to come up, but to lose an opportunity to prep alongside Josh and Joe, not only from a physical, psychological, but also from like a content creation standpoint, it just seemed too good to not do. So Cal was happy with the work that we put in, and we kind of ramped things up from an anabolic perspective, from a training perspective as well the last couple of months. And we got to the position where, we're not going to win this show on size. And I understand that I'm not a huge mass monster, but the symmetry, the structure, the flow, and the condition, I think we've done enough to hold our own. So yeah, a big driving force in that kind of condensed off-season phase, which was I found really enjoyable.
Can we dive into like what you've done differently? I know you mentioned obviously you've done a lot of things different this time around.
Yeah.
Dive into more, because obviously I followed a lot of your off seasons in the past, but for sure this one has been the best one I've ever seen you do.
Yeah.
Take us through that. Take us through this past.
Yeah. Year. The foot was never taken off the gas, and with me in off seasons, because the coaching aspect for me is something that I need, because I can slip into ways that I don't want to fall into very easily, and I need that person each week to go, you look shit, or you're doing this, or you're doing that wrong, or well done, you're doing this. And for me, that just takes me to an area, having Cal almost kind of gas you up to a certain degree and say, this is a whole different TMC. It's enough just to keep you going. But from a training standpoint, the last 6 months, it's just true intensity, true train to failure. I think every single one of us think that we train hard until we train with someone who pushes us harder. And having Josh and having Joe either side screaming and shouting, and having that kind of the presence of a videographer as well, putting effort into content, it just takes things up a level. And having those two to train with, particularly who are far greater from a kind of strength standpoint and physical standpoint, it just takes you to another level, to the point where, they've got 10 or 15 kilos on me in terms of body weight, but I'm still going to fucking keep up with them when I'm lifting. I'm not taking plates off, so that particular environment with those two sucked in just took my physique each week to a totally different level, and big emphasis on recovery, much more frequent deep tissue work, much more frequent kind of prioritization of sleep, and lockdown's been a blessing, because I haven't been able to go out. I haven't been able to go raving. I haven't been able to go and drink and take drugs and shit like that. It wasn't there. So that's a big part of lockdown I've seen is very beneficial. So just literally ramping things up and taking shit a lot more seriously has been the main two,
Is this something that you're going to continue doing now that obviously we're going to probably come out of lockdown at some point this year?
Yeah.
And hopefully not go back into another one. Is this something that you're going to maybe prioritize a little bit more in terms of bodybuilding? Or are we going to, take a step backwards and just maybe enjoy life like you have done in the past, or now that the opportunities are there?
The latter, George, the latter. I'm giving everything to this contest prep. The next 12 and 14, maybe more, if I choose to do a few more of the shows. And once that's done and I've kind of redeemed myself, it will be very much, enjoying myself again, getting that balance back, and most definitely we'll continue training, but I feel like I would love to enter a new or a slightly different avenue within the kind of field of fitness. And I'd love to start sort of getting back onto boxing and MMA again. So we'll see what happens. But for the time being, the priorities: get this show done, redeem myself, have a good sort of try to enjoy the summer. Fingers crossed everything does open up again. Get a couple of holiday trips in, and then we'll reassess then.
You said about having a coach being one of the things that was fundamental for you to make progress as a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I know you're very much invested in your business. I know that you produce a heavy amount of content, and that content production, takes time. It also takes, stresses to a degree, meeting deadlines, putting out fresh content. Is there any way that you've sort of strategized your business and the development side of things, that side, to be able to still be a really, really good bodybuilder? Because I feel like sometimes people who have got a big passion for business, it does sometimes fit very, very well, but equally it can sometimes be something that pulls away from the daily routine and obsessive nature of being a bodybuilder also.
Yeah, totally. And I started to feel that occur, and that's when I reached out to Gigi and said, look, let's start working together. Went and had a coffee up in Shoreditch, and just blown away by his detail into not only what he would like me to do as an individual, but also what he would plan to do in the future. And I'm very stubborn when I choose to work with people. And I think that may be a downfall, but I'm so picky with everything to do with the whole content creation side that it will take me a lot to either work with a videographer or a graphic designer, for example. So when Gigi came along and I saw the plan, and we were very much on the same page, and we've been friends for a while, when I worked with PTC and Luke Johnson. So to have him there, just dip in and out, was perfect. And then so he covers the kind of the training footage and content on the members site, and that just allows me to do my usual sit down podcast mic weekly content surrounding a particular topic, and it's very easy for me to edit and upload. So the stress of having to kind of get Instagram content, members content, and YouTube content out has dropped completely, and that just gives me the ability to now wake up, do my cardio, walk the dog, do my check-ins, plan for future business ventures like the Ibiza Classic Challenge that's happening very soon. So it just makes my life a hell of a lot easier and allows me to do my job at hand at the moment, which is be a bodybuilder.
Have you taken a step back from coaching in general over the last couple of years and focused more so on sort of the member site and your content creation elsewhere?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'd never had huge numbers anyway. I was always more so into spending time on the creation element of YouTube and Instagram. So that did take time, and it still does take time. I'm a perfectionist in the sense that even when I do a vlog, if I'm not happy with a certain, if I sit back here in the setup and I'm not happy with a certain shot downstairs in the kitchen, back down I go with the camera and I change the lighting. So that does take time. And I never pushed numbers with coaching, and you very rarely see me, if ever, say I've got coaching slots. The list of upcoming potential clients is so long on Gmail, but it's a push. I'll probably do 5 to 10. It's come right back down now to a couple, which is fantastic, because what we're doing at the start of April is have this 12-week Ibiza Classic Challenge where they'll have a one-to-one coaching with me. Then they'll have weekly chances to win prizes. They've got flights, accommodation to Ibiza, and it's I kind of want to create not just like a transformation challenge like your generic ones that you see, but I want people to use this opportunity to start to become content creators within the fitness industry. So I start coaching them, they're prepping for this challenge, it gives them the chance to start filming, do 4 days of eating training videos. So I want to just kind of come off this generic path of like transformation challenge. I want to kind of broaden it a little.
For me, what's your ultimate goal with everything now? Because I know you've got a very successful member site. You're doing things like the Ibiza Classic. What's the ultimate goal now with everything? Is it going to be more towards the member site side of things? Because I know you've taken a step back from YouTube and obviously prioritize more of the member site stuff. Like where are things going? What do you want from all of this?
It's a good question. I'm not really one for planning really far ahead in the future. I never have. I always get this Instagram, what's the 5-year plan? You know, I share Luke Johnson's understanding. I could go and get hit by a bus tomorrow, and there is no 5-year plan. So for me, and possibly again another downfall, not planning that far in ahead, is that I don't look to 1 year or 2 years. I very much live in the moment, but have an understanding of like the next few months, like the next block. You know, I kind of look at it more as like a training block. I've got in the next 12 weeks, I want to do this, which will be able to set me up for this. Then I can reinvest back into the business and do the clothing. And then it's kind of, that's the way I structure my mindset in terms of business. So it's never really like, oh, 5 years, sit down, kids, car. I don't, you know, I'm kind of off that path. So yeah, I can't really give you an answer for the future, but it's just continue galvanizing the market and ensuring that I'm the kind of go-to as soon as a topic arises. Tom, it's on the site, boom, boom. But in terms of the member site itself, I very much want to start to, and we're getting Gigi on board to do a series here for like editing, and which is kind of covered the business side of things for people that are stepping into the fitness industry. You know, it's very well we can teach them about nutrition and training, but what about the people that want to make a living out of here? So we're talking taxes, we're talking about how to run finances, investments, and things like that. So that's an area that I want to particularly tap into.
100%. What I really like about what I've seen from yourself is you're always planning, you're always ahead of the game. You're never, not knowing what to post. Like myself at the moment, I'm sitting here fucking twiddling my fingers. What do I post on Instagram? There's nothing to post. But whereas yourself, you're always ahead of the game. You're always planning. You've always got something to post. I really like that. That's something that I need to do with myself. And like that's where you've taken your biggest step in terms of your content and the quality of your content and just how efficient it is just by you planning out that side of things, and just being consistent with it. Like you're very consistent with it, which is
yeah. Really and it's only like a week or two in advance. When I used to work with Shredded by Science, who's now the PTC, they would plan months in advance. So when we were looking at the G sheet, I think, fuck, they've got content for September here. This is crazy. Whereas for us a lot, we can kind of ad hoc post. If you're training the gym and I don't particularly want to post that day, I can always just put up a video of me doing an RDL. Or now that Gigi's with me, he will take so many photographs in the gym that when I sit down on a Sunday and plan my content, I can go, right, there's a picture of me like looking odd, and I can just put some wanky McGregor post in. And sometimes they do better than informative posts. So it's like the thing with Instagram is like it's tricky because you can spend time and hours and effort putting research into a post about intermittent fasting and it will get barely any shares. And then you put a Joe Brightman shot of yourself barely clothed and boom, So I wouldn't beat yourself up too much about content creation and posts. Just hit that one or 2 week in advance and just makes life a hell of a lot easier.
George talked a little bit about your future goals, and I know that you don't tend to plan for those. I'm interested to know about a little bit more about your why, especially with bodybuilding. So like for reference, I definitely bodybuild pretty much solely for myself. I'm not too worried about the result and its reflection on others, apart from the fact that I now represent obviously a result in me is a result in my business, which is huge. Now for yourself, obviously I know that you love bodybuilding, but I equally know that you love so many other things in life. So with bodybuilding, like, are you more driven by the why of you getting on stage and proving it to yourself, or are you very actually driven now by what the result sort of speaks volumes in terms of other people looking at you and thinking, okay, he achieved this? Like, do you get what I'm trying to ask?
100%. This particular time around is the why is to completely obliterate previous physiques on stage. That's just like it's I'm looking at myself and I'm like, right, it's about time to take this seriously. We can't just keep rocking up and then 8 weeks out going, oh, I'm not going to off season now, or then like 8 weeks out going, I'm more concerned about how I'm looking at Ocean Beach in Ibiza in 8 weeks than actually being on stage. That's gone now, and and that's maturity. Us males, we tend to mature a little slower than females, and we can all hold our hands up. But there's a certain element of competing that I love so much is that it gives me the structure and time to just religiously put into future business ventures, content planning, strategy. Because sometimes in off season, I fall into the trap of, me and Brightman were having this message the other day. It's hard to kind of keep up an appearance and post in off season. It really is. Because from a physique perspective, you're like, oh, I don't really want to show myself off. I don't look great, you know. Well, unless you're Joe, who looks fucking ridiculous in off season. So, you know, he's okay. But for the vast majority of us, like, what do I post? Yeah, bulking but there's not many buzzwords. Buzzwords don't do well in off season. You know, you look on YouTube, off season bulking compared to contest prep shredding, it's like boom, boom. So the why for this time around is to redeem myself, but it's also to really keep me grounded and ensure that I can kind of set myself up for next year's business and you know, this and future investments really. So yeah, so it's a bit of both.
Are you competitive in nature? Have you always been competitive?
Yeah, and that's why I had to stop team sports, because I'd do well in cricket and then someone would fuck up and then I'm in the change room, I'm saying you're shit. You know, I got to do swimming. I do a swimming gala. Swimming was the kind of turning point because went from there was teams, so like relays, but then they were like, right, don't put Tom in that because he's going to fucking lose his head. Put him in the single 50-meter butterfly, and then I fucking rinse everyone. And then I've only got myself to blame. So yeah, I'm always competitive. And I don't really have any siblings, so it's not like that kind of brotherly or sibling kind of competitiveness. It's just I don't know. I think for the vast majority of us, it's just ingrained in your DNA when you know.
Yeah. What's the goal competing wise this year then? What do you want to achieve? Top 3 win?
I mean, it's just so odd because I don't know who's competing this lockdown, who's got access to equipment. I'm every session I tell myself how grateful and how much of a position that I may be in terms of more favorable, because then maybe I'm competing with that haven't got this. So I'm not taking that for granted. But I think we've got the PCA. It's a PCA. I think it's been changed, the East Anglia to Hampshire for that particular date, and I've got the FitX one at the start of June. So, you know, it's always weird because you say, "Oh, top 3, or I'd like to win the show," and you kind of don't really mean it. And all I want is just kind of obliterate that body power physique, and I think within my particular physique and structure from a classic standpoint, if we can get that condition in with the tissue that we've gained in off season, then we can probably hold our own and challenge for that top 3. So yeah, to answer a good top 3 placing in each.
100%. Now I've noticed your biggest improvement this off season is probably your legs. I've seen cluster sets, things like that. What's been the secret behind the leg of this past?
Yeah. To begin with, accuracy, you know, and seriously to the point where we almost resetting movements, dropping that load, going to full knee flexion, really understanding and connecting well with certain movements like the leg press and the hack squat, and really leaving that ego at the door. And then once you kind of mechanically, neurologically got used to that, that's when the load started coming, and that's when Josh and Joe entered, and then it just took a whole new level, you know. And environment is key. There's no way I could have gone and done 6 plates on that Cybex hack without Josh and Joe screaming, or without the videographer, or without the environment. I'd been stuck on 4 and then pushed to 4.5. So the biggest area for leg development, and it's still a weak body part of mine, but it's improved to the point where I do think it flows better now, and the whole physique looks a lot more balanced. But in terms of the actual progression, in terms of the size, it was just having those two. It really was, and having them say, no, it's not failure, you've got one more, and going, oh, fucking hell, okay, there is one more, and you know, just really pushing that upper limit.
I think that's one of the biggest things that a lot of people struggle with, though. It's like the understanding that they're actually not at the limit, and
yeah.
So many people think they are.
And yeah, I know. And I can see that now, you know, I can see it. And you can see the fakes. You can see that, you know, that you've got 3. I trained with Jack Rayner. You know, Jack Rayner, is it Rayner Trainer? Lovely guy, but like fucking nice guy. Yeah. But he came to me because he was like, oh, I'm doing, and then that fucking RPERA is a whole different conversation. You know, it really is. But, you know, he came to me, and I think he had 1 week of failure. And it just, even that concept just made me laugh. It's like, you've actually, right, this week's to failure. But, you know, I was training with him, and he's like, 1 more. I was like, there's at least 3 or 4 more there. Believe me. I'll take you through, you know, you focus on eccentric load and I'll get it up for you. But that's like that, you know, and the vast majority of people don't have that understanding of true failure. And even when I go and train with the next person that's probably stronger, faster, fitter than Josh and Joe, it will take me up to another level. But they've taken me up enough to a point where I've seen some decent progression.
Yeah. It's a skill.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, we could, like I said, you could go on all day about the RIR thing, but that's why it's one of the biggest downfalls, in my opinion, is just you don't get enough time spent training hard enough. And when you don't get time there, you don't get better at it. And it's as simple as that. If you're training 1 week every 5 weeks, that's basically 10 opportunities a year to train.
Yeah,
to train really hard.
Yeah, I know we shouldn't. I don't know. We can get into it if you want, but I get it. I understand it, and there's certain individuals that can take it there and do well with it. But even then, I look at that and think your recovery methods are on point. You have the ability to eat, sleep, and grow. Why not push it further than that? You know what I'm saying? So it's just it's an odd concept.
All of us, we get content. Like when I trained with you and Kuba, AJ, first time, you get content when you train on your own. You feel like, I'm doing enough. But then when you train with someone else, it's like, like you said earlier, it's like, fucking hell, I need to step up my game here.
Yeah.
Far behind. So that's one thing which I'm trying to, obviously outside this lockdown, I'm going to try and train with someone that's better than me, bigger and stronger than me, and can push me and actually make me look like a little bitch, because that motivates me to train fucking harder, because I get so comfortable sometimes training on my own all the fucking time.
Of course, but that's all walks. You look at all athletes, you look at all elite athletes, you look at boxers, MMA fighters, they're training with people that are bigger, faster, stronger than them, because ultimately, it's gonna, if we were on the same level playing field, it's like, okay, we're just getting by, but you throw someone who's better into the mix, and then that's when we start to elevate.
Yeah. We can change tack a little bit and go a little bit into business. So I've been asked this question a few times. I think it's a good one to throw to you for sure, because you've been in the industry for a while. And what we see as the fitness industry now is very different to what we've seen in the fitness industry 5 years ago. It will be 5 years time, will be very different again.
Yep.
So what I would like to know, and I think for the listeners is a bit of value from yourself, is what would be your advice for someone that's starting out now in the last year or so? How are they going to stand out? What are things that they can do to essentially start to make a name for themselves in what is, perhaps the word is saturated, but I think the word is just maybe, I don't know whether saturated is the right word, because there's always going to be saturation. There's a lot of people, whether it's saturated or not, I don't know. But how can people really start to make a name for themselves? How can people be you? How can people be at the level that you are?
But I think what's key is understanding your strengths to begin with, because you're going to have different individuals in the industry that are very sort of competent and stronger in their own areas. So usually what you find with a lot of educational individuals is that they're quite monotonous and they're a bit placid. So from the entertainment value, you're probably not going to get that. So it's best that we probably don't do like day in the life vlogs and trips on holiday, because it's like, well, you're a bit dull, mate. So let's leave that. You just focus on the kind of education side, and then if you are charismatic and you're a natural behind camera, essentially you're going to get a lot more scope and engagement with the entertainment value. And I was listening to Victor's podcast with Callum and the Muscle Mentors the other day, the one about PEDs, and he said that the entertainment aspect within the industry is going to far excel all the time, because once you see a relatable person, you fall in love. Chris Bumstead, that you almost fall in love with him more because he's a down-to-earth guy than a stunning physique. So, but that shouldn't then delude you with the understanding that you have to force a particular character or force a particular kind of stance in order to gain traction. So just focus on those strengths. If it is education, then potentially tap into an area and just become the best person at that particular area, and I always kind of feel stumped with these questions about advice, because it's I've never followed a book, you see. So I've never gone in and thought, right, tomorrow I'm starting the fitness industry, by week 1 I need to do this. It's just sometimes it feels like I'm fucking winging it. You know what I mean? It just feels like, oh, fucking hell, like I thought it was like last week I was in GNC selling serious mass, and now I'm making triple that from Insight on a monthly. It's just it's crazy. It really is. So maybe I'm not the best person, because I'm not this fucking business guru. I can't get into that at the moment. They're doing my heads in, and I think the that's an area that really needs to be assessed. These people that have done well in online coaching have then taken it upon themselves to become a business guru, because newbies aren't in the fitness industry seeing business guru and thinking, I'm going to follow his shit. And then they start following it and it's just absolutely dire. Absolutely dire. So that's why I'm really trying to pump a lot of time and energy into this building your socials aspect and really kind of tapping into you as an individual and how we can broaden and how we can expand your abilities to help you in the long run.
Do you think people are scared to be themselves now online? Do you think people are scared to show their true identity?
Yeah, huge, massive, because you see what's happening. You know, everything is being attacked now. Everything has been, you look at Harry and Meghan most recently last week. In the space of 7 days, females in particular, I mean, it's Jesus Christ. This woman has just sat there and said she's thought suicidal thoughts. And then us lot are going, no, she wasn't. She was fine. Like, the inability to take things serious in life now is horrendous. And that is having an effect on people's ability to be open. You know, I feel like this. No, you don't, you know, or like you have to be an alpha male, you know, in order to do well. So for me, I'm very thick skinned. You take one look at my YouTube, it's just, you know, there's about 25% of all this gear and you look like that and you think, you know, that doesn't faze me. It used to faze me when I first started. It really shit me up. I hated it. I was scared and I didn't want to post anything, but then you kind of get used to it. But yeah, 100%, mate. 100% people are very fearful to be themselves.
YouTube's the worst place for it. Worst.
Oh, horrible.
So on my channel especially, there's so many people that can just easily sit behind a screen and just fucking put whatever comment they want. And it's sometimes it can be quite hurtful, I must admit. You know, I try and not take it to heart as much, but you know, you do get like 100 comments and that one comment can piss you. It really can. It watching, man. Mate,
it did. Josh Bridgman the other day, if you followed him on Instagram, so just a small comment can just throw you off. It happens to me sometimes, you know. And like when it goes personal, when it goes deep, it was about a missus or, you know, and then that's when I think, well, we can either parlay. You want to expand on this. This is the address, and we can push on. But like, careful, because you're in that territory that I'm not really comfortable with. But you know, you have this industry in this particular social media realm that we all work in. We have to be very thick-skinned if you want to progress.
100%. It's yeah. That's one thing which I see a lot now on YouTube and stuff like that. And what's holding people back is just, especially people ask, I'm sure everyone's got a message before about how to post on social media, having the confidence to do it. And I can see why a lot of people don't do it anymore, is because you know, they're scared of getting this hate. They're scared of getting people, because so many people nowadays can have a comment. Everyone's got a comment about everything, about everything nowadays. And it's just, yeah, it just really does bother me. I must admit. What was I going to say? I've totally forgot what I was going to say. AJ, bump him, boy. I forgot.
Okay, sure. So I think one thing we haven't covered, I really like the business chats. I'll think of some more business questions, I'm sure, to cap off. But from a nutrition element, people are always interested in nutrition.
Yeah.
And we obviously had a fairly in-depth discussion with Joe about nutrition.
Yeah.
And I did bring up actually an issue that was raised in your video about the granola situation.
Yeah.
Flexible diet and some things. I know that you've always been someone that has had a little bit more of a flexible approach, or I guess a more inclusive approach to what foods you allow within a diet. And that's refreshing. Now, is this something that you believe you'll stick with for the entire prep this year? Or are you planning to go towards maybe having Cal give you a set structure and you just follow it? Or is anything going to change?
I mean, aside from the granola, the 90% of the diet at the moment is quote unquote clean. It's very regimented and it's very strict. And I said to myself when entering this comp prep that the blander, the better, the less excitement, the better. And it's working for me thus far. It really is, because I'm such a foodie, you know, with me, if I go down the route of like, or if I take a bit of this out and then I can put that, and then I can get a Nando's in a bit, you know. If I hold off the granola and then I have a little bit of fat left, I can have. So it just gets into sticky territory with me. And the blander, the better. There's no excitement. I'm eating for fuel. I'm eating because I have to eat and get the protein, fats, and carbs in. There's no excitement. There's no. You know, I'm saying to Joe, "What are you doing, binging, mate?" You know, I'm taking one up on him here. I've got Josh Bridgman eating pop chips. I'm thinking, whoa, you know. So they're just these little psychological battles. But yeah, apart from the granola, mate, it's very bland. Of course, at this stage, seasonings and different flavors are going in. But then come 8 weeks out, I'm very much ready to go hardcore.
Yeah, brilliant. I tend to agree with that for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, personally for myself, I did a whole prep, one of my first and my second prep pretty flexibly. And including like loads of foods that you just wouldn't really see in a bodybuilding diet, and my relationship with food at the end was not good.
Terrible.
Because I came out of it with the whole fixation on my fitness pal and trying to just add whatever I wanted. And I think for sure I think you have to go through that period though.
100%.
To be able to develop an understanding and awareness of where your limit is with flexibility.
100%.
Where it applies.
100%. And I don't want people listening to this think, oh, I can't do that now, because you look at some of the likes. I mean, even in my old coach, Luke Johnson, his prep was very flexible. And he had his glutes in, you know, like fucking hell. For a first time show, he looked incredible. Then you look at the likes of Nunes. I very much enjoy watching people eat when I'm on prep. It's just weird, you know, habit. You know, I watch a lot of Gordon Ramsay. It's just instinct. Out comes the Marmite, and I'm like, right, get Gordon on. And I was watching some of Nunes's, and Nunes, when he was just absolutely diced, was like, oh yeah, today I'm just going to have 2 bits of bread, get some jam, cut up a banana. I was thinking, fucking hell, this is like one of the best natural bodybuilders, just having a banana sandwich. And it screws, it crosses people's wires, because like, hold on, it doesn't work. You should be eating this. So it's refreshing to see, but everyone's different. And for me at this current stage, having that kind of more strict approach to dieting is working far better.
I must admit, I am the exact same. Like last prep, I mentioned this in the last podcast, I was doing the 10 cal jellies. I was doing baking soda into the oats. And really, I just kept it bland and boring and kept it the same old. So it didn't for me to do any of that. And that's definitely my next prep. It's something I'm going to be doing. In terms of your macros and food, what's it looking like at the moment? Is it?
Yeah, we've had the drop. So we're down to training days are on 200 protein, 450 carb, and 60 fat, which is fine. I've not been a huge fat kind of guy in off season as well. I've been more so wanting to kind of prioritize carbohydrates and been happy to do so. And then fats get bumped up a little bit. So rest days are slightly more tough, slightly more tricky, because we're down to 200 protein, 250 carb, and 80 fat. So at 12, 14, 15 weeks out, it's quite low, which is cool. But you start to implement those contest prep tactics. You know, we push meal 1 back. We have things like 5-HTP, nicotine gum, black coffees will usually kind of take me through, and then just prioritizing and focusing on work and things like Xbox. You know, I jump on the Xbox now for a couple of hours and play with the boys. You think, oh shit, it's time to eat again. So it's just about keeping the mind busy, and it's doable.
100%.
In terms of the prep rate of loss, if you attack the first phase a little bit quicker than in previous preps, have you come down harsher? Has it been a more aggressive beginning?
Yeah, so this is end of week, coming up to the end of week 6, and we're down about 10 key. But now that I've gone from 110 to 99, and that weight's creeping up a little bit again, because we've obviously introduced a new stack design. So slightly more anabolics have come in. So it's very much now going to be based on visuals, because we will find ourselves in this kind of position where scale weight stays pretty stagnant, but with what we're using from a lipolytic point of view and stack design, we're probably going to possibly grow into this show whilst fat's coming off. So it's nice. It's good. You know, it's not usually I've adopted the approach where it's quite slow and then harsh. Yeah. Whereas I've found this particular phase quite well, when mood's good, training's still good, but we've taken 10 key off the frame. I'm like, oh God, this is cool. And then we can kind of not cruise into it per se, but you can understand my sort of thought process about going into the show now.
What was your previous stage weight?
Low 80s. I think it was 82.7.
And what are you planning this year?
It's so hard, because it's the first time using this particular style of anabolic stack design, first time having Cal on board, you know, and already seeing what's happening to Joe, who's like hasn't budged weight and his conditions coming in. It's like, imagine if I could get on stage at high 80s, you know, and have 8 kilos with glutes in, in the space of a year and a half to 2 years. So honestly, it's very, very hard for me to put a number, but I would say, knowing me and knowing my body and knowing what needs to be done, from, you know, getting rid of body fat in those fucking stubborn areas for me, which is my arse and my glute, my arse and my lower back. Yeah, probably mid to high 80s would be incredible. I'd be very happy.
For those stubborn areas, have you been using anything already on them? Have you been using any Vasoburn or anything like that? Have you used Vasoburn in the past?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I've used that in the past around my stomach, and it's had great effect. I was very much into the kind of combination of like topical yohimbine and oral yohimbine. And one prep I was using Helios, which is like a basically injectable. It's injectable Clen, L-carnitine, and yohimbine, and it was from Enhanced Athlete. Do you remember Enhanced Athlete? Tony Huge.
Oh yeah,
Remember him? I don't know where they've gone. I think they're still about. But very, very strong, like incredibly strong. And what happened in 2 weeks using that was crazy. But, you know, at this point, we're just kind of keeping stress low, you know, not putting too much stimulation through the body and the system. There's no real need. I think we'll come in fine. But even the sort of site injection, spot injection of using things like growth hormone, for example, have been crazy. You know, my ability to keep my stomach relatively okay through jabbing in that particular area is mad. And Josh and Joe will say the same. You know, that kind of localized fat metabolism from growth is massive. It is huge.
I was going to dive into more. AJ, have you got anything else to add on that? Sorry.
From a nutrition standpoint, I think I've covered everything. If you were closer out, I'd be asking you questions on peaking and things like that, but it's too soon to ask. So I think for now, we've got to round up on where you're at nutrition wise.
Yeah, 100%. Did you put a question box up? Did you get any good questions at all? Because normally we put a question box up. And
put it up crazy late. They were pretty poor, to be honest.
Okay.
They were like usual. There was lots of them. Don't get me wrong, but they were like usual Q&A questions.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with the podcast.
No.
Always the case. So I wanted to just touch upon, like, for example, your posing. So I saw obviously your pose. I saw you at Body Power actually when you was up against Brandon. I remember the crowd, it was quite a big crowd, if you remember.
Yeah.
One thing I really like is you're very artistic with your posing.
Yeah.
So what goes into that? Like, are you a big poser in the off season? Do you start in the off season and practice, or is it just a case of, you know, contest prep throughout? Because the mistake I made in my contest prep is I did practice my posing, but I never practiced on a routine, and I just kind of made it up on the spot. But when I saw what you did on stage, it was far more impressive than mine. So
yeah, my auntie's was a dancer for her whole career over in Spain. That's where I get the moves from. I'm light on my feet. I like a two-step now and again, but what will happen is at the beginning of contest prep, I'll choose my music. So now the music's in, and it may be just I'll put it on in the background when I'm working, and I'll visualize that into that, turn into vacuum into. So, you know, I'm not religiously like, this has got to happen. Over the duration of maybe like 8 weeks, I'll kind of put together pieces and then combine it. And then once I'm happy that at that point, then we'll start practicing the particular routine. And yeah, like looking at rough Diesel's posing. Well, the song I think was the "I'm a Survivor." Remember that one?
Yeah, classic, I think. Yeah.
Just fucking blew me away. I just thought that is incredible. You know, that is absolutely incredible. That is what we need to aspire. And I think particularly with classic, that I would love for classic judging to include posing. I think that'd be fun. I think they used to do it. I think back in the day, there was a particular criteria for posing within classic. If they could bring that back, I think it would be brilliant, because it is a chance to showcase your physique that isn't just your bodybuilding dubstep. So I would love for that to come back, definitely. But yeah, no, I love it. I love I kind of look at it as I would within my content creation. Everything artistically, everything is fluid and moves well, you know.
From a routine perspective, everyone loves a bodybuilding routine. And what I mean by that is your day-to-day routine, not actual posing routine.
Yeah.
What does your day look like? Let's take us through a training day. What does it look like from wake until you go to bed?
Yeah. So, I mean, I there's no sort of set sleep and wake times. It's if I'm going to bed at 11, I'll add on 8.5 or 9 hours to that, and then I'll wake up. But usually I'm sort of, I try and aim to be in bed at 10:30. I'll put on Headspace and be out by 11. And then that way I know if I get up at sort of 7:30, I've had a good 8.5 hours sleep. So at the moment upon wake, it's hydrate. I've even kind of got to the point where I'm not even having any sugar-free squash or electrolytes, just being anal about, right, I'm using these lipolytic components, the growth hormone, the hemoglobin. I don't want anything to negate those. So it is just my half a litre of water. Cardio's in every day now, so I jump on the bike, and the bike's been brilliant. So I don't have to travel to the gym. I can just get the Apple Watch on. I'm on the bike. I tend to get my heart rate to 130 BPM, and then once it's at that, set it for the 20 instead of kind of warming up. So we do that. Cardio's at 20 minutes every day now. But once the heart rate's still elevated, I'll jump off and then go for my steps. And I'll try and get a good sort of 4,500 steps, the bulk of them done in the morning. So by the time I'm back at about sort of 10:30, 11, get that heart rate down, and in goes meal number one. And that'll be 90 minutes before training. And at the moment we're training at about 12:30. I'm kind of waiting, on the owner to say, yeah, you can come in at this time. So that's why I'm looking forward to when the gyms are open. I can get like, right, the routine and structure is back. I'm not waiting on any, we've got to train at 3 today, because that will throw me off. I'm so OCD that seriously does my head in. But thankfully we're in at 12:30, and still intra workouts are in, carbs are in, EAAs, post workout staying the same. And once we're back and had that second meal, then I'll have a work. I tend to kind of work later on in the evening. And I think a big area for a lot of those, and we mentioned this about those entering the industry, is kind of don't get caught up on this 5 a.m. club. We must get up at 5, and everyone's going to work differently. I'm more productive in the evening, like doing these now. I'll jump off and get some work done. And but then I have the ability now to kind of switch off. I have my support max, the blue light blockers go on, and I can chill out. So yeah, I mean, it's beautifully monotonous, and I very do much enjoy the contest prep side of things. It's not too exciting. And with rest day like today, I just push back meal number one. So I tend to get up a little later and kind of prioritize an extra sleep cycle. So if I can get a good 9.5, 10 hours in, I will do the cardio, take the dog for a walk, take the dog for a big walk, and then in goes meal number one. And then I'll have my pro fat meal. And then, same kind of structure, same sort of setup.
Fantastic.
Have you had any problems with, I know you mentioned obviously about timings with the gym. Have you had any problems with that? Because that's my problem sometimes.
Yeah.
Timings, and your hopes up and I'm not going in today. It's like, fuck.
I think I was training at King's for a little bit, but that was like the evening before. You're coming in at 11. We've got coming at 3. It's King's Mitcham. It's like, drop me out. I cannot. Do you know what I mean? I need that. So then my friend Ignacio, who's a powerlifter, who trains at 7R, said, look, come with us. We're perfectly fine. You create your content in their film. And even that environment of having him do 6-plate fucking deadlifts is like, oh shit, and I'm very grateful to be in the position we're in. I was training at Fitnastic, which is a gym up in Central, but I think the police came last week. Even though I was sort of saying to the owner, it's legally I'm allowed to be here. There's no issue. They're like, no, we've got to close up. It's like, all right, sweet. So yeah, I'm 4 days a week at 7R at the moment. And then that training frequency will increase once we all go back. And I'm predicting that Callum will probably just align all of our sessions and squeeze the most out of this sort of last final phase with us all together.
Okay, sure. Awesome.
AJ, anything else to add?
I've pretty much asked everything I wanted to ask. I think it's been fantastic, and I can tell you've been on several podcasts, mate, because you answer very concisely.
Yeah.
It's very, very cool to hear.
Top man, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, pleasure. Thank you very much for your time, mate. And as always, to the listeners, thank you for the support on the episodes, and we appreciate you tuning in.